Kappa. I know you should know if you didn't. So today we have this workshop. It's only 3 hours. If you know us, we used to teach workshop for 5 days, and people said that's too long. Then we started teaching in 3 days, and that was too long. 1 day, and now we're teaching like 3 hours workshop. So that has been a lot of change for us. But during these 3 hours, if I can go, I'm going to go through this process. So we have check-in and hello, and this is what we're doing now. Then I go through some opening slides. Some of you have seen some of those. It's mostly talking about what's pollination, how the Revit plugin works inside this, why we actually had to develop the Revit plugin. Then I'll talk specifically about Revit plugin a little bit more, like what is the idea behind the Revit plugin, was kind of like an ideology, was why we developed it the way we developed it, what are the things that are working right now. And then, as I said, I want to just fix the Revit sample model, the basic Revit sample model. So it doesn't matter which version of Revit you have, from 2020 to 2022 or 2023. I don't think Autodesk ever fixed that model. They just put it there and just like, that's it. Good for them that they can do that. But anyways, that model is small, but at the same time, it has almost all the issues that you would see in other models. They have done a great job to make a sample model for us. So we just use that to fix it together. Again, as I said, you don't have to follow along, but if you want to follow along, this is the 2 steps to follow along. Then I put some linked models in the Google Drive. After we're done with the Revit sample model, we will work on linked model. Again, linked model is a newer feature that we have added. And I want to walk you through the process so you see how it works. And finally, like we have Q&A and then closing presentation, which is like a few slides to say like, where are we going from here, and what do you expect if you come next year to the same workshop? So what will be here for the Revit plugin? Any questions so far? No. And if you have any questions, like that's one of the other things, is just like feel free, I don't know, like raise your hand digitally, whatever, unmute yourself. This is a workshop for you, right? It's you can stop me at any point, and it's a very short workshop, so I'm not trying to do a lot. Disclaimer, I don't know Revit. I just know enough to use pollination, and that's a great news for you, because if I can do it, if I was able to do it, you can definitely do it. I have seen for a lot of people coming from energy modeling side, or like engineers are like, oh, we don't know Revit. I'm like, so do I. I don't know Revit too, or neither do I. So it's totally fine. You don't need to know the whole Revit to be able to use the pollination plugin. So what is pollination? Pollination is an ecosystem of tools for environmental building, design, and simulation. It is what we call an AND platform. It's a collaboration platform. It's a collection of CAD plugins. It's an app store, and it's a cloud computing service. It's not an OR platform, right? It's this, and this, and this, and that. And the reason we had to do it like this, because we are trying to end this kind of questions of like, you have to select something that is easy to use, or validated and accurate, or customizable. We want to offer solutions that are customizable and accurate and easy to use. And that's where pollination comes in the middle. So to make this happen, or this secret sauce to build something that can be customizable and accurate and easy to use at the same time, is to make it as a tool set with like layers of infrastructure that are hackable or accessible to the users. This is the infrastructure that we had to build to get to where we are. So, you know, like engines where like there were some simulation engines. It took us years to build our libraries around them, develop an API, develop plugins on top of them, to get to the point that you can do apps or scripts in hours to days, right? But you don't have to stop here. If you want to go down, you can change the API, you can go rewrite your own plugin or extend the plugin. And this is why we can offer solutions that are easy to use, but can be kept really accurate if you want to change it, if you want to modify it. So it's not like a single click, like one for everyone kind of solution. The other or that we want to end with pollination, or help to end, is the thing between oh, it's the early design tool versus a detailed design tool. So we want to be here that you can use it during the process and it evolves basically with your needs. So that's another basically offering of Pollination. Then the other thing is architects and engineers, like this idea of this is a tool used by architects, this is a tool used by engineers. And as a result, between the two, we basically don't reuse the model. We drop the model out and we redraw everything. We are trying to resolve that. We're trying to improve this. And I should say, like, none of the solutions that we have are perfect. Like things, I mean, you will see today, you have to work, you have to figure it out. And I think that's one thing that we all have to accept. With the quality of the models that we have, with the authoring tools that we have, in particular Revit, the idea of like we automate everything for you, you just click everything is just resolved. It's great, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. At least in my experience, after seeing hundreds of models that coming from real projects. So this is the whole ecosystem. We have the cloud computing. We have the web interface to help you for collaboration and work. We have the CAD plugins. Then we have the apps in the middle that connects them together. And the CAD plugin side, and we add this here because people ask, Pollination is not going to replace Ladybug tools. Pollination is an extension to Ladybug tools. They work together. If you're attending the Rhino workshop this afternoon, you will see that, how it works in action. Then all the plugins, we always, when we build an ecosystem, we build it an open ecosystem. So if you want to take all these plugins and export the model, go to any other tool that you're using for simulation, that's totally possible. That's actually the thing that we are focusing on the most these days, because that's the thing that people spend a lot of time. So we're trying to improve the time here and slowly open up more time for people to come on the other side of the platform. All the CAD plugins have using the API that we have to give you access to cloud computing. They also have integration to apps. Apps are beta. It's newer technology that we're working on, and it's coming along. Then the apps also can use the cloud computing using the same API. And excuse me, from inside the app, you can use, excuse me again, third-party services, any other third party that you can access with an API. And then you can build your own apps using our API, not using any other part of the ecosystem. So today is this guy here, Revit. At the end, I'll show a sample app, like saying like this is beta, all stuff, and then we'll see how it goes. I'm not planning to open it anywhere, but if you want, we can do that. We'll see where it goes. Again, like my main plan is just to stay in Revit, fix things, make a clean model. Maybe we visualize it in Revit or Rhino or IES. So from that, what does the Revit plugin do? That's this workshop, right? It extracts clean geometry from Revit. So that's the first thing. The first reason we started the Revit plugin was because it's really hard to get a clean model out of your Revit model. Most of the people have to redraw everything, and just by redrawing everything, you'll never catch up with the speed of design. So that's our first goal to do. The other one is it assigns simulation metadata to your model, so it allows you to add a schedule, the construction set, and all those. Admittedly, that's not something that people use as much right now. This is what people use a lot, but this is also there. You can use it if you want. Then it exports an analytical model to several platforms. Unlike most of the other tools out there, we are not just, like, oh, this is Pollination plugin, so you only export the model to Pollination. No, it's Pollination plugin. You can take it and export your model anywhere that you want, including Pollination Rhino plugin and the stuff that we're using, if that fits you. And the other thing that it provides is helps you to run simulation locally or on the cloud. I put locally in brackets because it is work in progress. We have it implemented. We couldn't test it enough and finish it to present it here, but it should be there by the end of the year maximum. And again, it's an AND platform, so it does all of this as part of the package. You can use each part separately if you want. So what are the principles behind the Revit plugin? And you will see a lot of things that I mentioned during the workshop is just like comes from some decisions. Like we made decisions based on these principles. Oops. One is no two Revit models are the same. Even two Revit models coming from the same office are not the same. I'm not talking about geometry. I'm talking about how they get built. Basically, this idea of if you build something and you click and it works for every Revit model is non-existent. So you have to do some preparation for your model to be able to get a high quality model. Then there is no single analytical model. This is another thing, like this idea of I have this one analytical model that works for structure, for environmental design, for I don't know, daylight simulation, for comfort, for energy. So there is no such a thing as one that does everything. You can abstract the model and there will be a model that works for a few of them, but there's always, you need to have this flexibility to go between them and just optimize your analytical model for the study that you want to run. Then there's no silver bullet fully automated solution. At least for now, I really encourage everyone to accept this and make their life easy. There's no silver bullet. It's okay. We get you 90% there, we get you 80% there, like you save that much time and you fix 20%. And the more models we get, the better the plugin is going to be. So at some point, and sometimes you forget, I just watched the first video that Conrad recorded for when it was called Honeybee Revit plugin, which I think is 2 years old, 2 year and a half old. And it was just unbelievable how much progress we have made during the 2 years. You forget about that. I forget about that. You know, like we're always feeling like, oh, we're behind. This model didn't work. That model didn't work. But as we are fixing these models, helping everyone, at some point we'll get in a very stable place. But I don't think it will be 100%. Unless Autodesk changes their mind and like they make some changes to Revit. That's also unlikely. But at the end, you should understand, especially if you're engineer working with architects, architect working with engineer, any of this combination, communication is the key. And that's something that I have to tell people a lot, because if you talk to each other, you know, it's like people don't want to talk to each other. And I know like there is resistance to change, but that's part of the process. If you can make this communication happen, it saves you a lot of time and a lot of things will be easier if just they know what you need as an engineer or what you go through, and the other way around. Again, and all this at the same time. So the Revit plugin is designed to help you with imperfect models. So our idea is, as I said, like the model is imperfect. You'd never get a design model that everything is fixed. You don't even have time, even if you want to fix it. So we have the thing set up in a way to show you the problem and help you fix it. Then I'm going actually, Levent is here, so I'm going to use this. Thank you for posting this, making my life easy. So we have a no magic approach. That means there is no magic happening behind workflow. It does not offer a one-size-fits-all solution. You see what you're doing, you see how you're doing it, and you can control it. That's the key. So we don't want to just hide it and say like, oh, something like this happened. Like we solved it, we're geniuses. It's not like that. And to make the thing, when you don't offer a no magic solution, what you offer is very flexible and you give you control. So the amount of control that we give you is on the other end to be able to just go through all these things that might happen. So in this example, I'm showing two things that we give you control on. One is the fact that you can use linked model and you can go between the models and pick, okay, from this linked model, I'm going to take the aperture. From this linked model, I'm going to take the shades. And from my host, I'm going to take the room and space it and can mix them together without binding the linked models. The other thing is for curtain walls, we not only allow you to pick which types are the aperture, sorry, not for curtain walls, for apertures in Pollination, we just let you to pick if all the windows that we have to parse, all the curtain walls, doors, even some people use walls to represent apertures. I don't know why, but they do. And not only you can do that, you can also do this to filter by material. So you can say this part of the material is the part that I want. This is also another level of control that I just mentioned. You can export the model based on where you are in the design process as just extruded, or how your model looks like as just extruded, or you can do detailed. We are going to do this today because our model doesn't have flat roofs and all, but this extruded mode has helped us with a lot of projects, like large office projects, hospitals, schools, and we are trying to merge the two together now. So it's kind of like you make a decision of this room I want it to be extruded, this one I want it to be detailed. So you spend only time to clean up the detailed ones, and then for the extruded ones, we basically take care of the aperture and everything. You have more control. The other thing that you should know about the Revit plugin is we give you access to export only part of the model. And it's interesting that I have to talk about this as a feature, but all the other plugins that I know basically they export the whole model for you. And then during the design process, sometimes you just want one or two rooms to just run a study, get a sense or something. And this is very helpful at that point to help you. We also have or started, this is also on the newer side, we started to include some built-in repairing tools. So this one in particular that I have here is the one that allows you to align to a guide. So you draw a guideline, and then you say, if it's between this distance, there is a threshold, then align the geometry to that line. The reason we had to do this is there are a lot of Revit models that we get when you use the separation line. People use the separation line, or you have walls with different thicknesses. You end up with rooms that are slightly moved up and down. It's not necessarily a problem until it is. So if you want to clean them up, you can now doing this without fixing the room. The other challenge that we have seen, especially on the models that the engineers don't have ownership of it, they're just like, we cannot go in and change the room. The room just stays as is. So they need a solution to fix that without changing the room. So these are the solutions that we are adding in. Again, these are newer. For example, this one is only available for extruded mode, but this is something that we will be working on more and more. And this is where your feedback will be really helpful. The problems like this that we understand need to be automated. I think this one Victor suggested it at some point. So thank you for doing that. And yes, this is the part of linked model that I just mentioned. We'll go through this. So we allow you to use the linked model to your model, and then we also let you to tell which data from the linked model do you want to access, between apertures, user data, and context shape. This is also the thing about how linked model works. I'll show this live, so we can go next. And I think one other major feature that of all the Pollination plugins is we are moving beyond GBXML. We export GBXML. You can export your geometry as GBXML, but to keep this interoperability, to have control on interoperability and being able to say, hey, if there is something wrong there, we'll fix it, we had to basically write directly to the file format for all the simulation tools. So we have export to RAD, to GEM for IES, HVJSON that works with Ladybug tools and our Rhino plugin, OSM for Open Studio. INP1 is still work in progress, but goes to eQuest, and IDF that goes directly to Energy Plus. Again, we still have GBXML. If you use DesignBuilder, for example, that's what you can use. And we are in touch with the DesignBuilder team to make sure the GBXML export goes there smoothly. And finally, Pollination is a community-driven project. It's a commercial product, but at the same time, we listen to the community. We have discourse. Everyone sees what we're doing. There is no secret, tier for people. Of course, for our paid customers, we're very careful to make sure they are successful with their projects. But at the same time, everyone can go in discourse, and if you need a feature request or if you find a bug, that's the place to go. And all of us, all the development team, are active on discourse and reading everything. We discuss everything that comes in. So if you post it there, that means we're going to read it and we're going to react. Any questions so far? No? Okay, we're good. Then if you haven't used the Revit plugin, or if you are curious how people are using the Revit plugin right now, this is the most common way that people are using it. It's kind of, the best name is what's that, this Southwest, getaway, want to get away kind of feeling. Is I don't want to stay in Revit. get me out of this as soon as possible. In this approach, you basically go, well, we go through this, you fix the model, you try to fix the model, you get out to any of the other platforms they use for simulation there. I think it's actually a very valid approach. Myself, not been great in Revit. A lot of time go to Rhino very quickly after fixing the main things. But if this is a project that comes over and over and you're working with other people, it makes sense to talk to them and make sure they make the Revit model in a good enough place for you to continue. We also have a sync model command, which we didn't really maintain for a long time. We tested it, it's there, we are still going to work on it, but we saw in reality still we are not there for that command to be as useful as we want it to be, but it doesn't mean it will not be. It's just something that we will be working on. So this is the one kind of approach that we have seen. The other one that we have seen is this. So people go from Revit, go to Rhino, and again, this is the one that I just mentioned. And then from Rhino, it opens up like the things that you can do. So you can do some cleanup in Rhino and go to all the software that we had there. You can go from Rhino and then go to cloud computing on Pollination. You can go from Rhino and go to Grasshopper side, automate some stuff there, and of course, go back to cloud computing. One thing that you don't see, and we don't see that much, is from Revit directly going to cloud computing. And that's something that I'll show you why that's not that common, because usually you need a little bit of extra work on your Revit model. For daylighting, for radiation, the Revit model can be good enough. For energy, there's still things that we have to work on. We have to solve it together. Takes some more time before, like, I can come here and confidently tell you, oh, go and run the energy model and you're fine. And disclaimer, or I don't know, like some note, if you don't know us, it's just like, we already do better than any other tool out there. You can say that seeing what they have done, but those tools, they're not really ready for energy modeling. We have to be cautious what model we use for energy modeling, and then make decisions based on that. Oh, and of course, like you can go from Grasshopper, go back here, and then go to these tools if you want, after automating, like adding shades, or I don't know, changing the window to our ratio, all the things that you want to. Okay, if you have no other questions, we can start cleaning up the model. Any questions? Okay, so let's do this. I think this is the place that someone will have some questions. This is Revit. You can use any version of Revit that you want. For the linked models, I think there are 2022, but for this, just open Revit and open the basic sample project. The one that we all know over the year. And I know it's obvious, but just so you know, I don't see your screens. So if you have any issues or if you have any questions, you should let me know. And we have Chris and Mingbo here too from our team. So yeah, there's enough help here. So just post it on chat and we can help you. You all know this model, I assume. The thing that matters, the first thing to check is if you're following along, you should have pollination here. And you should have the license manager being black. So if this is red and you click here, you don't see it, what you need to do is to sign in. And if you have a license that is expired, return the license and then retrieve a new license. If you send me your ID, I have already gave you access. If you haven't, Chris can help you with that. Also, if you just installed the Revit plugin, you already have 14 days. So you can use it in trial mode. So that's also fine. Everyone is fine so far. Like if you click on this export model, this thing pops up with no issues. I mean, this can't be real. We should have at least one person with some issues. This is too good to be true.
Working on my end. Thumbs up.
Okay. Hey, you see, like you can have a workshop and everything pops up at least. Okay, good. So now don't, like, I just closed that. So I click on export model and I close it. So let me talk about this. Again, I know some of you have been through this process enough, but for some who just started using the plugin, I'll just quickly talk about what are the things that you have here and why we have them. So here on the left side for the plugin, you start from License Manager. I just said why this is useful. Then we have a few useful links. So you have the link to Discourse is the place that you can ask all your questions, add your comments, and I think it goes to the one for Revit directly. Then you have the user manual that takes you to user manual for the Revit plugin. You can find a lot of stuff there. And you have about here. If you click on about, it tells you about the version, where is the log file, and all those. So if you use something and things are not working, we usually ask you to share the log, which you can find here. And we usually ask you to share the model too. Here you can find the version of the installation that you have. So I'm using the version 2.106.0. Most of you probably are on an older version, but that's totally fine. The last few versions, the thing was mostly about apps that are not the core part of this workshop, so you're good. Then we have enable disable pollination. So why does it matter? Because if I go here in level 1, for example, okay, so like one question, is there anyone here that doesn't know like how to navigate in Revit? Not to have, like when I click on level 1 or level 2 views, I take it no. So everyone knows Revit better than myself, which is great. So now, like when I go to level 1, if I click on a room, if I select the room, you'll see here there are some data down here that are added to every room in your model. This is because when you have Pollination plugin installed, we keep track of something like if it has sensor grid, construction set, program type, and HVAC here by adding this data field. So if you don't want them, if there is a model and you have Pollination installed, and I don't know, there's Beam Manager that doesn't like this, or some people don't want you to do that. So you can just always disable this. One thing to keep in mind, when you disable, all the data is gone. So if you add like construction, all those, and then you disable it, we just clean it up. It's not like you disable it, we keep it in archive or somewhere, and then you can bring it back. So disable it basically gives you the option to clean up all this and make the model like Revit plugin hasn't been installed, a Pollination Revit plugin. So I'm going to cancel that because we want it to be active. This settings all here are for the metadata that I talked about. Like basically, for a successful simulation, you have a geometry and then you have the metadata. Good news is if you are a Ladybug Tools user or OpenStudio user or Rhino, Pollination Rhino user, these menus are exactly the same as the one that we use in Revit, in Rhino, sorry. And the ones in Rhino are very similar to the ones you get in Pollination. So if you learn it once, you can use it in all these platforms. The use cases of these ones is like, creating new material, creating new construction, creating construction set, a schedule, program type, all this stuff. We have tutorial videos about this section. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time because there's not that much like figuring out there. You can just go and watch the videos, and if you have any questions, you can ask. Then this is the most clicked part of the plugin, basically.
Hey, Mustafa.
Hey.
Can I ask a question? Can you hear me?
Of course.
Yeah. So on that construction manager, I just want to clarify. So it's referencing the same database as you mentioned, right? Between Revit or Rhino plugins. So if you make a modification here, for example, a custom material construction is going to be referenced in Rhino. And then how does that kind of last between versions? Can you remind me how that gets updated, or how as a team can we maintain like a custom set of constructions across versions as we get updated and then across team members?
That's a very good question, and I'm happy I have Chris and Nebo here because they know more about this than I do.
Chris, you want to go?
Does that mean you want us to answer, Mustafa?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
They want to see you squirm.
Okay. Yeah. So well, there is a folder within your specific user folder, if you would navigate to, you know, see users, your username, app data, and then Ladybug tools. There's a subfolder in there called standards where you can drop basically anything that you want to be shared across your, you know, your plugins. So this gets shared across the Rhino plugin, the Ladybug tools plugin, and I believe the Revit plugin too, right, Mingbo? Because we're using the same UIs basically to
Yeah.
load everything up.
Mhm.
So yeah, so within there, within the standards subfolder, of this folder that Mustafa has up on his screen right here, right? You can see, yeah, you can drop in constructions, you can drop in construction sets, like, you know, so these would either be IDF files if you have, you know, a library of standards in IDF format for constructions, for example. You can drop in IDF schedules into that schedule subfolder. Or if you have like a JSON representation of the construction set or the program type, you can write those all into this, you know, this folder, and then that'll be shared. They should pop up basically within the menus of all the plugins. But yeah, this kind of shows you, yeah, I mean, like we ship, you know, Honeybee with a set of standards already, but yeah, you can create your own standards this way. And then if you want to share these standards with someone else in your office, it's just a matter of like, you know, sending, you know, zipping this file and then having them unzip it on their machine into that same location. So yeah, so this, by the way, also doesn't get overwritten. This user folder doesn't get overwritten when you uninstall and reinstall. So once you build the library, it's kind of there permanently. So yeah, so that's the kind of idea behind this, is that, you know, we'll probably add more, I think, ways of actually zipping and sending this more easily to others and sharing it in the future. But for now, yeah, if you just build up your library of standards in this folder here, then yeah, then you'll be able to share that with other people and reuse it indefinitely.
Thanks, Chris. I see in this one, Mustafa, you sharing your screen, right? Wasn't it?
Right.
It was blank. So some of the built-in standards that we see are not here. These will be
Right.
for custom.
Yes. This is
Yeah.
for custom
This is just a
additional stuff that
custom
you add.
personalized.
The
Okay.
ones that we ship goes under program file. So
Yeah.
Installation folder.
And that's because we you know, we will update those, you know, in so I guess it's under resources standards.
Yes, standards.
And yeah, the Honeybee Energy standards, that's like the library of all the ASHRAE 90.1
So this
programs.
is the
and
ones
construction
that
sets.
you see in the UI. And one thing in the UI, actually, now that you brought this up, is if I go here, you will see there is a source here that basically says where it comes from. Is it from NREL? Is it from LBT? And then if you build a new one, the source will be different. And these ones that we ship are locked, so you cannot edit them. If you want to edit them, you have to duplicate them and then edit them. Okay. So did
Okay.
this answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. So I think I was looking for the answer too on like the collaboration within the platform, and now it's kind of like zipping the file and sharing it. But I was curious within Pollination if there was a way to share it within your platform
Yeah, I think
through
we
like
haven't.
using your cloud platform. If there's a way we could both kind of point to the same thing. Just
That
was
makes
curious
a
on if
lot
there's
of
been
sense.
if there's been progress on that. So
We haven't, because there are not that many people asking for. You know the rules, Fisher. How to?
yeah, okay. I guess now we have one, so we'll see.
Yeah, let's go for it. Get votes on Discourse and we'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get vote.
I know how it works.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
thanks.
no worries. Thank you. So this is the settings. Then we get to the model section. So model, there are three parts here. One is if I select a room, you will see this manage room properties shows up. So this is the place that you can basically edit the properties for a room. Like you can change the, you can set up the loads, controls, or user data if any. Then you can play with construction set, program data, HVAC. And this is again like something that we have videos that shows how to work with this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I'm going to spend most of the time on the geometry side of Revit, which is the hardest part. Then you have the linked model one. This will work if you have linked models. You click on it, there's link manager. You see the linked models here, and then you select what you want to get from the linked models, something that we will do later during the workshop. And you have the export model, which is the one that you will be using the most. This is the tab that you click on, and it allows you to export your analytical model, your BIM model as an analytical model. On this side of simulation, this is the part that you can use to connect to Pollination Cloud for running simulation. This is the one that will be phased out in favor of apps. And by that, I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to always use apps, but you can basically access Pollination from inside this menu and schedule your simulations directly from here. This panel is connected to Revit. So basically, you can remove all this and you can simplify all that. And you basically use one UI to schedule all the simulations. Either you're using the web, you're using Rhino, or you're using Revit. And again, we're not going to touch this a lot, but I'm going to show an app at the end of closer to the end of the workshop. And I can log in here. Anyone has any questions? Okay. I have seen people being really cautious about putting their password in, but I don't know if you can figure out my password by that. And if you did a great job. So this is what I was talking about. There are all the apps. You should be able to go and say run new study, you know, and then things should work from here in the near future. So if I do like direct on Avers, now the recipe is basically telling me if you want to get the model, you can get it from here, and this directly comes out. So let's go and figure out how to prepare a model for this kind of workflows if you want to run a simulation. If there are no questions, then click on export model and we can get it started there. And at any point, if you want me to slow down, let me know. Again, I can't see your screen. So this is the main value proposition of Pollination right now, more than anything else. It basically a process that allows you to look at your BIM model, try to clean it up, and then export it at the end. The first step is geometry setting, what we call. I'll go through all of them quickly. One is up here is geometry calculation. So we have two different ways of calculating geometry for you. One is the detailed one. So in detailed, we go and get the geometry of a room or space, what it is in Revit. And then we try to export that. We try to extract that. We find all the apertures that are next to that room or space and then put it on. So this is the process that you need to clean up your model to be able to get. And I'll show you today. That's what we are going to use. But then for a lot of models, you can just use the extruded one. The extruded is very similar to what people do, that you export the DXF and you go and you try to extrude it. But the differences are you don't have to redraw every room. 2, you get all the room names. 3, if you have all your schedule and construction set, everything assigned, you actually get them through the process. And 4, you get all the apertures. So you don't have to go back and redraw all the apertures. So these are the better thing, but it's basically very similar logic behind it. Then in extruded mode, for window calculation, you have 2 options. One is detailed, the other one is simple ratio. The reason for this is, again, like depending on where you are in the design process, if you do load calculation, just a simple ratio might be enough. You don't want to clean up. You just want to have fewer window because the simulation speed and you want things to write quicker. So you just change this from being detailed to simple ratio, and that does it for you. Then we have 2 options here for fixing and repair that I mentioned. We should add an experimentalness next to this so people know. So what we are trying to do is, one is a line that I just talked about, is we allow you to do the process of drawing some lines in the Revit, and there is a video already. I mentioned all this. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this unless someone really wants to. And when you draw the line, you basically put a threshold here, and the lines and the room will be aligned to the lines. This diagram hopefully is clear enough. The other one is short segment distance. So this one is the idea is you come here and say anything that is smaller than 200, just remove it for me. So if again you see the short segment off, you have this small thing. For example, if you have a dock or if there's a column there, the one on the right is what we want. Again, this is experimental feature. We'll see how it works. And we're really trying to work hard on this part to help you not to have to do this stuff in Rhino, for example. So you can do more in Revit and get things already ready to go. Then we have compute volume. If you want to compute the volume of the room instead of just in 2D, we always set this on. I don't know if you turn it off, you can even get anything good from Revit, but you can try. Tolerance, most cases just don't touch it. We had to put a tolerance there. But then comes to phase. So we support different phases, and you should make sure you are on the right phase in the Revit plugin. So you export the geometry. There are cases that I have seen people just select the wrong phase. By default, when you open it, it picks the same phase that is active in Revit. Whatever is the phase here, when drawing will be the default here the first time. But when you change it, it stays, and save the file, it stays here for you. And then we have something here for user data. It's very specific. If you want to assign some additional data that we don't have, or we don't export and use it somewhere else, for most of you, you don't need it until later. Any questions so far here? I'm going to go ahead and just go all the way with extruded versus detailed, so you get a better feel about it. But other than that, do you have any questions that you want me to address?
What was the use case for the user data that you saw the community ask for it?
So it was more of a customer than a community in this. I mean, they're part of a community, of course. So the thing is, say you have a smart glass, right? And you want to assign the type of the smart glass that you have, to assign a specific shading logic to it from your Revit model. The way to do that is then you can go and for curtain wall panels, for example, write them in your comments, and then we export the comment with every curtain panel that we export. And then in Rhino, or we had like in a recipe on Pollination, we can pick up that user data and based on that, assign a logic to that object. Does it make sense? So I think one thing for you that might make sense is like, I remember you wanted something to remove some of the rooms. You know, you can just go and like add a comment on remove, and then have a script that looks it up and say, whatever has a comment removed, just remove it from the model. Something like that. Any other questions? Did I answer your question, Victor?
Yeah, I could see the usefulness in that. So it exports it to Rhino, for example.
Right.
And then you can pick it up as a piece of metadata there to use. Okay.
It exports to HV.json and DF.json basically, and then we pick it up from there. We use it a lot in recipes. So then you don't have to build your own new UI. You can basically use Revit parameters to make that UI for you. That will be your UI. And if you add new parameters, they will show up here. So that's how you extend it.
So that's going to be under like room properties then in the Rhino interface?
Right. I mean, it can be under room, window, and curtain wall. Like these are the objects that we support, right? You see this pollination has sensor, pollination construct. These are the ones that we have added. These are the ones that comes by default for a room. Okay. If there's no question, again, this time I'm going to go fast to show you the difference between extruded and detail. So I go extruded, I go next. This is the place that we will select the apertures. For now, let's not do that. At this place is levels. I just select all the levels, go here. What it does, it goes and reads all the rooms and spaces. If you have a spaces, this model doesn't have a spaces. And I select everything. I preview them. You'll see how it goes. And the first time it loads the library, so it takes a little bit of time for the viewer. This viewer is also one of the things that we will work on next year to make it better. But now you see what happened. So what's really happening is it's just taking that line and extruding them up, right? And it tries to figure out the height of each room the best it can, but it's not definitely accurate. But again, like if it was an extruded model, that would have been fine. A few things that you can see here is, for example, because this is the roof is tilted here, right? You see the height of these floors are different in level 2, or even for level 1, you see a little bit of difference depending on what room we're dealing with. So these are the things that in 2D, in extruded mode, you can quickly fix. So you can go in levels and here force height. So you can say whatever is on level 1, I want to have a certain height. What was the height again? So here level 1 is let me set everything to be 4,000. So I go to level 1, I make it 4,000. And this is still like our menu is not the best, sometimes like selection, but like I'm just selecting level 1 now because that's all I care about to show you. So now you see all the height where everything changed to 4,000. So if I select this and do a new preview, and for selection, I select 1 and then I press Control A. You should see everything is now ended up at 4,000. Make sense? So this is like the simpler, quicker way of getting things out. No questions for me so far? Okay, let me go back to 3. And one thing is, if I want to go forward, you have to use right and left here. If you want to go backward, you can click on that. The reason for that is when you go forward, you have to recalculate some stuff when you get to a certain step. And we can't give you that much freedom. But when you go backwards, it's okay. Like we can give you like full freedom to do whatever you want to do. Okay, now let's go back to step 1 and let's try to do the real thing, detailed. The detailed means, as I said, like we're going to get the real room volume and try to export that, which means we have to fix the real room before exporting it. So let me go next, detailed. At this point, I'm going to select the apertures too. So for this model, it's very simple. You have these two, so let's select them. Then the system panel glazed, I select this one here. And I select the entrance door, and I select the curtain wall here. All of them. So anyone, actually, let me ask this question. Anyone is trying to follow? Like, is it the right speed? I cannot see your screen again. So is there a thumbs up, down? Like anyone? That's me. Okay. You're good. Thank you, Aaron. How do you do that? Okay, Jared is good. Okay. If you're following, let me know. That's cool. So one thing here that I want you to notice from the UI is this. You see this skylight has the dot that is black here. The rest are grayed out. So if you click on this, you'll see it gives you access to different material in this window. So you can say if the aluminum part of it, you want it to be part of the aperture or not. I'll show you like how that makes a difference in a second. So basically, like if you select it, then what will happen is, let me go in 3D here. You see this? If you select it, then that part also will be calculated as the aperture. If you don't, we only take the glass. So what is the right approach really depends on like how you want to work with this. You can select the whole thing, and that means your window to wall ratio is not to be as accurate depending on like how you do window to wall ratio. If you really want only glass, then you want to remove that and you want to adjust the U value for the frame. This is again like something you make a decision about. For daylighting, probably you don't want that to be included because you only want the aperture. And these are the things that when I say like there is no single analytical model, these are the things that I mean. Like you basically have to have control on that to get it right. Okay, let me go back here. For now, I'll just keep them and then I'll come back and remove them. So this is all for this model. Fortunately, no one used a wall to create an aperture. So we don't select any of those. But the reason we're keeping it because we have seen models that people have used walls to represent aperture. Don't ask me why. We just have done it. Here, what you can see is now, like the first thing that I see, that height override is gone. because this is detailed, right? So I cannot overwrite it here to a certain height. I can actually do it in the next step. I'll show you how. But there are two levels that really have rooms or spaces. There is level 1 and level 2. In large models, you usually want to do it level by level during the cleanup. This is a small model, so I'll just render everything first, and then we talk about the stuff. And you'll see, even for this model, there are like several issues with how the model gets parsed. So I just came here. It did its work of like parsing all of them. I select one room and press Control A, and then come here and click on this I to reload preview. And this is what I get. If you're following, do you see this? Yes, okay.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, you see that too. Okay, cool. So we have something to do. So the most obvious ones, this is just what's going on. What's going on with you here too. There is a column here that we probably don't want to be part of it. We can talk about. Then here, there are apertures missing. If I go down here into Revit, and remember how to turn, you see this too, this guy here. This is missing from the model. So one of the things that I do quickly when I get a model is, and that's why we have this aperture here, right? I'll check the rooms and make sure they have the number of apertures that they expect. Sometimes you can go back and like extrude it and make it like all lumped together to, it will be a 0, 1 to make sure, okay, what are the ones that we have, they have aperture. And I think we added the option to sort by. Don't know if it works, but like to quickly check. No, this doesn't work for sorting, but that's the first check that you want to do. Then the other one is, you see all this I thing here. These are the one that has the rooms that have warnings and they have some issues going on. This is something that we should definitely do a better documentation in a way of like, not everything should be an I. So there should be like a better indication of what they are. But if I click on them, you see a little almost cryptic error messages of like, face has no surface type assigned, likely because room doesn't extend to floor roof above. So what does this mean? Or you get the same for living, right? It has like, oh, there is a face here that likely doesn't meet anything. And there is another one for floor below here. It says face has no surface type assigned, likely because room is offset from floor below. Why it's happening? So the way to see that is you can right click here and actually select the room. So it shows it to you in the view inside Revit. But before doing that, we have built what's called a view template. I think if I'm doing it right for pollination, so you can quickly come and you see like it's here next to every level, either here or you could have done it here. There is a plus sign either in step 3 or step 4. If you're using an older version, this shade context might be here at step 3, I think. So sorry if hopefully that doesn't confuse you. Like the context now, we moved it after the room again because people asked for it, not because we like to or we wanted to. Like it's and I think it makes more sense. But what I want to say is, if you want to see the level, you can do plus here and create a floor plan. So why is it a good thing? Because first of all, it turns on all the rooms for you. Not everywhere you get all the rooms on. So sometimes you go to the plan view and they're not on, you have to turn it on. More importantly, it turns on all these separation lines. And you might think, okay, I can see separation lines. You don't. And Revit models are very strange how people use separation lines. So let me go to level 2 here. Do you see any separation lines? No, right? Then you go, oh, this is because the visibility is not set. So I go here and okay, now you see my Revit now. Is it under annotations? Where it's under lines, right? So there is one for separation line. We should do something here. And you can see room separation line. And you see room separation line is on. So if there's a separation line, you should see it, right? But you don't, because surprise, surprise, it's hidden. There is a separation line here, and it's hidden in your Revit model. And this is why we couldn't see the aperture actually, because the room stops here at the separation line. It never touches this aperture. And seeing these cases and learning from them. So if I go back here and do the, instead of level 1, I plus, on level 2, I click on this plus sign and then do create floor plan. So this is the floor plan for level 2. So we go through and make sure you see every separation line in your model if they are, because you get hidden separation lines all over the place. People put it in. And in a second, we will see why they put it in, because you think like, oh, you're crazy. Why do you do that? And then you remove it and you understand why people do that. But then this is going to break our pollination model, so we have to remove it. Any questions so far? No? Okay, so let me go back. Remember, we went through the process. We get all the way to the place that we had the rooms. We had the preview here. So I go next here. And we had a few rooms that were giving us warnings. So I'm going to go first with this living, which is this room, because I know, but I could right click here and do select. And it will go and find it in the view here, and it will show it to me. So
could I clarify something on the separation lines?
yes.
So that happens all the time.
Okay.
We always have separation lines, and a lot of
People-
times, even on clean models, for whatever reason, in AECtech, based on how it's linking in a core model or shell model or whatever, is going to have maybe a separation line on something that's non-room bounding, or it's not fully developed, or I don't know. There's probably a million reasons why. So whenever it's on that exterior wall, I mean, it always causes an issue with apertures, as you mentioned. Is there another workaround for that? Like if you move the separation line kind of outside the wall, can it pick up an aperture?
Yes.
Or something?
Yes. As long as it touches the wall, it picks up the aperture.
So can we move the separation line? Is that a quick
Yeah, what I
workaround?
usually do, if the thing is, I try to basically figure out where is the leak and just draw the separation line there. We can test it. We can test putting it out there, but I think for
Yeah, I
this
was just
model,
gonna
we have
test it.
to, yeah, because if you put it even out there, you will see the leak in 3D. So you really have to fix the roof. But yeah, we'll get there. I know like separation line is something that needs to be communicated, but then it's just, you have a lot of flexibility just to go draw separation line in places that is really needed. So going back to this living space here, the reason there are two issues. So what they have a section here already, so I don't have to draw a section. So I'm going to move this section a little bit here, right, all the way up. So this line goes like this, or you can draw a new section line. Right click, go to view, and this is my section. So now if we watch this, one of the errors, the second error is because of this. So you see this room, you see this, I go here and press tab to select the room. So this room doesn't really touch this floor here. And that's why the plugin is complaining about. It just says, hey, is an offset from floor below. It doesn't really touch the surface side. It sets it up to a floor, to a ground, and you can see it's the same, but it just says, I did my best. I don't know why this is happening. The other error that you see is because of these things are leaking here. You see these faces here? So these faces on the top, again, the plugin doesn't know it. They don't end in the right place. They just end up in the middle of nowhere, right? And the reason that's happening is, again, if I go to the plan here and draw a section, so I go under view and bring the section and draw it. And after you fix a few models, this thing becomes like, oh, I know this, you know? So like every time you have to go do this. So if I go again, actually this doesn't show up good here. But the reason this is happening is because the room and the aperture, you see there is a gap here. This is the place that the thing is leaking. So to fix that, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to fix that leakage. So I'm going to select this basic roof, right? Then click on edit footprint. And it tells me where do I want to edit it. So I want to edit it in Pollination level 1 view. The reason I use Pollination level 1 versus level 1 is because I want to be able to see the separation lines while I'm fixing it. And I say open view. So this goes here. So this is what's happening. You see the room line is here. The roof line is here. And this is the space in the middle that is causing this. So the fix is usually pretty easy. Again, I mean, this is something that I don't know, in an architectural model, just ending it to be next to the wall is not necessarily a bad thing. But for making this gap, fixing this gap, we have to fix it here. So I can use align tool, or you can move it. So I just align this to that, right? You can align this to that. If you don't know where align is, it's on here, modify and this, and you can press AL also to give you align. So this will fix these two sides, but then we have a very interesting situation here too, that we have to resolve. But for now, let me accept this and see if what I've done so far makes any sense, and if it fixes the issue. So I go back here to my panel, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the floor that I'm fixing. I mean, you can only select this room if you want at this point. So I can select only living. In larger models, this is very important, because if you select the whole thing, then you reload the whole thing every single time. So things becomes really slow. So really a good practice here for fixing is to go back to step 3, remove level 2, only keep level 1, go back here, because we are only working on level 1, right? And then try to see the model. So if I wouldn't go back and come here and I would do the preview, I would see the same preview. Because what preview does, it only tries to re-show, like basically parse these geometries and show them. If you make any changes in your Revit model that you want to be seen here, you have to use this one, reload geometry. So you see there are 2 of them here. This is reload preview, and then you do reload geometry. So if I do reload geometry, you see it triggers the change to go and reload everything from Revit and see if we fixed anything. Hey, here we go. So this one is already fixed. Any questions? Did it make sense so far? Like the whole approach? And how am I doing on time? Do you have questions, Charlie?
Yeah, and a quick question. So when you edited that floor slab, you edited it in a location where the windows were almost floor to ceiling at that point, right? They're almost full height windows. Would you do the same if the window is just like a standard kind of non-floor to height, floor to ceiling height window?
Yes, this doesn't have to do with the aperture. In this case, because they are room banding, room basically stops here. So it's about like the room itself. Whatever your room banding element is, you have to make sure the floor basically aligns with that, so it doesn't look. Yes, good question. Any other questions? No. Okay, let me.
I have a question, Mustafa. So you were showing us in the section that the ground level on that living room is lower, but the room was higher, and therefore the model in the preview in Pollination, all the ground level floor is aligned. But if you wanted to change that, you just need to get that room volume to go to the bottom of the floor.
Yes, that was the next thing I wanted to fix. So let's fix this first. So let's fix this. So the way I would fix it, there are different ways. One is I can really literally take this down. But usually what I would do, like, or a little cleaner way, I think, or maybe like just to show what are the other things that we have here. So one of the other options that you have here is basically we control some of the Revit properties here. So upper limit, limit offset, and base offset. So these are basically these that you get here for a room. You get it in Pollination. So if you want to quickly fix it from them. So the way I would do this is, first of all, I mean, as a person who doesn't use Revit that much or used to not to, like, I don't know. One of the things, it's very confusing to me why you set the upper limit to something. So you see like upper limit for a room on level 1 is level 1. And then you offset it for 4,000. Why would you do that? I don't know. Like, is there a practical reason for this? I asked Conrad this too. I don't know. Like, this is how it's set up. But the way you can fix it, so we are working on this living, right? So I can go and say, actually, upper limit of this is the ceiling, right? This goes all the way to this ceiling. So that's the upper limit. And I don't need any limit offset. And then for base offset, I can do minus 550. The reason I know minus 550 because I have worked with this model so many times. So now if I go and you see now this is red, it means like this thing, there is a change here. So I go ahead and apply this, the change that I just made. And now we should see that this is fixed. That goes all the way down. That error is gone. Right, we still have one because of this side, this part. And if you go in Revit itself, this is also fixed. Make sense? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, great. This thing is zooming actually cool. So yeah, so and again, like the thing is, which one is the best? There is no best way. Basically, there are different user interfaces to do the same thing. I could have really like just drag this down in Revit or just change the numbers, select the room here, you know, and change the numbers if I want it. But like I find this cleaner. And the other thing is like I can do it for multiple rooms at the same time. You know, I can do it for the whole floor. So that's how I do it. So the last thing here is to fix this part of it. And there is also a laundry and that has an issue, and then there is kitchen that has an issue. So check this, let's check this laundry and this together. So I press Control and then I do select, or I can do preview. So before doing select, I'm going to do preview here. So I see where the laundry is and what's going on with this. And no surprises, this is happening, you know, next to each other. And you can see when it goes up, it actually takes the aperture from the other room. Because in Revit, for whatever reason, they decided that room object and space object doesn't need to know about the apertures. And we have to do that in our plugin. And that's very tricky. But the good news is because we have a preview here, I think that's one of the things that we worked on a lot to make sure it's happening. You can see everything before you export it. So you don't have to do all this, go to IES, go to Rhino, go to DesignBuilder and say, oh, this is not correct. Let's go back and fix the Revit. You just fix it here, and then you save it here and you export it. So that's the key. So let me go and fix this. So both of this are happening because of this. If I select this, oh, this actually selected it in section. So, I mean, you guys know Revit, but if you don't, you press Control Tab to go between them. So I go here, this is my happy laundry. So this is the laundry. And this is the other room that we were working on. And this is the suppression line in the middle. If I can select again here. And this is the suppression line in the middle that's causing all these different issues that we have. So the way to fix this is very similar. So what I need to do, I'm going to go in section, select the slab here, and then edit the perimeter line. I don't know if it was a live workshop, like in-person workshop, I would have given you the time to do it yourself before I do it. Do you want me to do that, or do you want me to go ahead? It's hard to get feedback. I think like it means like, let's just do it. I'll just do it for you then. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this slab, right? This one, edit boundary, go to pollination level 1. So you see what's happening again, right? The slab is here, the room line is here, and this is causing all those leakage because like it goes all in the middle of all those. And then we have one happiness here with my favorite element in Revit, separation lines, of course, that basically causing this small thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the slab down here, do this, and then I'm going to align this separation line also here. So we get a clean geometry in this area that has all these issues. One thing to notice, I don't know if you guys noticed, when we use the extruded mode, I didn't have any of these issues. It just worked. Because extruded mode doesn't get the whole room thing. It just gets the line and then extruded it out. And that's why we have it, and that's why it's very useful. So for this model, if it wasn't for the workshop, what I would have done is I would have explored the first floor in extruded mode in like 2 minutes. And then I would have just deal with the upper floor that really needs the detailed mode. The reason I'm spending time during this workshop to show you the process, not that you really have to do this for a model this small. We could have used the extruded mode right away. So to edit this again, I'm going to draw this boundary. And believe it or not, every time still I do this, I feel like, oh, this is great. I can do this. Okay, so I did this. Click on this. I'll move this one here. I know like Revit has trim and the thing that should allow you to do this better. But bear with me. And then I'm going to. So I cleaned up this. Then the next thing I want to do is to align this one that I can't do right now. So I have to go out and then I align this. But this is all I did. Basically, I moved that line here so it meets the room boundary. So I say, okay. So this is something that, again, like, I don't really understand exactly what attach is, but Conrad always tells me, like, don't attach. You make the decision. I just like, he told me don't ask him why exactly you don't attach. But now that one is fixed. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to align this separation line with this line here. So I'm going to click on align here under modify, click on this, and then tap to make sure it selects my separation line, and then align this with that. And click here. It's probably a good time to save our model. Or in my case, save as, because I always want to have the wrong model. To use for workshops, the documents. I should have said it in my computer. I'll just save it there. So if you want to save it too. Any questions so far? Does it make sense? Start. Okay, thank you. Since there's no question, I go back here in room manager. One of the other things I do once in a while, if I make a lot of changes, I really close this panel and open it again to make sure like everything is synced. But usually like that, it should work. So now I select everything. Remember, we don't have to click on preview, right? I made changes inside Revit. So I want to do reload geometry. And look at us. So everything is resolved except for this leaving. So we'll get to leaving next. So this is fixed. That's a clean line here, right? There is no warning anymore. Actually, there's one still for living. So I think maybe this line, yep, I have to move this a little bit. So the thing that's happening is if I do preview, this is a still. So I have also to go back and move the slab on top to that new line that I put in the middle of all of them. So the reason I could see it, maybe because I have worked in this model more than what I should. But if you couldn't see it and you have this preview, maybe this is a good time to show you a little bit about the viewer and what are the things that the viewer offers. So this is a full-fledged viewer that you can use. There are controls on the side here. So one of the things that I could have done is right-click here, go and select them, select like, let's say walls, and then click on edge visibility. So it also shows the edges. So that sometimes helps to better see the geometry, see where they're meeting, right? Like sometimes you cannot see them easily. The other thing that I do a lot is you can come here and turn off a certain layer, right? If you want to make sure things are correct, you can do a certain layer, turn it off. You can also set the preview. So I can go to top and then I can go here and change between perspective and orthographic. So to see, that's another thing that I use a lot. One more thing, because apertures are always the one that can be wrong. I basically select everything and turn everything off, and then check the apertures to make sure like things are exported as expected. Makes sense. So these are the tools that you have to quickly check your model. There are some fancier stuff here too that you can use if you want to get fancy. So on the viewer end, there is a section box functionality that allows you to draw a section box if you want. So you can do that too. And see your model if you have a model with multiple floors. And actually, you can do section wall in different directions if you want. So that also works. With that, we have this column here. So that's the last thing I think, like, except this one that I have to fix. That's the last thing I want to fix for this first floor. And then we can move to the second floor.
In the viewer, are you able to visualize constructions or any of the kind of additional information that we?
Unfortunately, not right now. So technically, yes. Do we have it implemented? No. Will we implement it? Absolutely. Yeah, the other thing in the viewer that really like missing is you should be able to click on this, right? And then this should show you the room here. And I think like I saw someone ask for, maybe it was you, I don't know, like for adding like the name of the room. That's something that is something that we can also do. That's something technically we can do right now, even like, so we can read the names of the room. Okay, if there is no other questions, and I'm going to reset all this to normal. I go ahead and try to fix this living this time because I have already talked about it a few times. And then maybe I'll just show you like you could have done it from 3D mode too. So I can select it here, right? And then edit floor print. And of course, I don't want to do it here. I go to Pollination level 1 here. And now you see why this is happening because of this link between the two. And align is your friend. Do this. I mean, we say a lot of bad things about Revit. I think this align command is really nice. It's better than Rhino align. But now this is fixed. The other thing I want to fix, and I talked about it, is this column. So this column, if you want to do a daylight model, you want to keep it. If you want to do an energy model, you usually don't want to keep it. If you want to have a model that can do both, what you can do, you can remove it here and then add it as a context. So it will be as a context in your daylight model, but it will be removed from your energy model. So the way to remove this is you click on the object that you want and you see it's room bounding. Usually, like if you have a lot of them, you can right click here and select all the instances in your entire project and try to remove the room bounding. This is again one of those things based on who owns the model. It can be a back and forth, right? Like if you're the engineering side and the architecture side, they don't want this to be part of the area. So this is one of those things. That's why we had that small remove all the smaller edges as part of that. So if you can automate those stuff, then this can get automatically removed. You can now, we have a lot of great workflows to do this in Rhino, but again, like we're trying to bring more of this into Revit as much as we can. And I'm very glad I have Chris here because I asked him for a lot of these features. He doesn't get to see like the whole why thing. And now it gets, this is a good one. So now let's go back here and select everything. Again, remember, I made a change in Revit. So I need to do reload geometry. Here you go. The column is removed. This is also, here is done clean. Everything is clean. I don't see any missing apertures so far. So that should be fine. And again, like in a realistic workflow, if this was a larger model, I usually go ahead to next step, which is add context shade. This is the part that we can add context shade. And for example, now I can select this, the column that we just removed, come here and do plus add shades from selection. So it added that column that I had M180 here. And now I can preview it here to make sure like that has been parsed correctly. So here is the shade, and now you can see we get like all the geometric stuff there on top too. And if I want to see it in relation with rooms, I can actually, I need to go to this step 4, select the rooms to make sure like they are part of the selection. And then I can do this, and it will also, I clicked on this, you see like it adds the rooms to this preview. This is useful for you to understand the relationship between the shade, context objects, and the room. So this is what I get, right? Again, for daylight model, this is not a problem. I honestly don't know if we can have a good solution for you to fix this inside Revit right now, but this is a good representation, as good as representation as we can have for the shade with what we have. A few things, one more thing at least, is you see this detached here, that you have an option, you click. This is right now, it's mainly for IES. Because in IES, there are two concepts of, of shade, of neighbor shades, and they call it, what's the other one I forgot, local shade. So if you don't do detached, it means it's a local shade. If you do detached, it will be modeled as a neighbor building. When you export it, that's the difference. That's why you have it here. This will also be helpful later on for like some advanced daylight simulations. But for now, we're good with this. So I go to next. Here, this is the step that you make a decision if you want to add sensor grids. There's a grid size up here. There's distance from floor up here that you can go. And then I didn't do any of those. Here, again, there is an option to go to that edit properties. Oh, and of course, there's a bug here for some reason that I don't know of. But this is the place that I can set up all those, or should be set up all the construction set and all those. I'm going to go to IES, so all of this will be, if you use GEM, basically we don't export them. But I can now select everything and go to export and select the IES-VE gem and make a new folder here, AC 2022, and save it as IES model. I go ahead and also do a honeybee model. Save just to show you the differences if you want. Any questions? No, it's oh, I know. So the reason I'm doing this is you want to know if there are any issues before, like going and exporting the whole model. This level by level checking pays back big time. It saves you a lot of time. So I'm going to do this. File, import, BIM file, AC, change this to gem. I put a feature request for IES team to give us by default from that place, but for now we have to do this. And now you see how it works. So everything is in. You do OK, and this one comes in. We didn't have, so something that you might get with larger models is you might get some intersection errors that it tells you, like this thing intersecting with that. What you usually want, take the name of the room and go back to the Revit model, and you can see, and usually they're easy to fix. Most of the time it's a separation line problem that goes somewhere, causing the issue. Any questions?
Mustafa, is there any chance we can just run a quick model report on IES?
Oh, sure. Yeah. This is model report, right? What are the errors that you want to see? So intersecting spaces. So this is the report. Silvers. Is it an error or is it something? No problem, I didn't.
Not really, no.
No. Okay, I think so far so good. But yeah, this is also very helpful. Sometimes I use this to figure out and go back and fix the stuff if I want to do stuff inside IES. And one question, if no one asked, but you can use GBXML. And actually, let me do that to show you why. I mean, it's unlikely for this one to get an error, right? I also, while we were talking, I also opened the model here in Rhino. So for you to see, so this is the model that I exported. The reason you need something like Rhino is, for example, you can fix this thing quickly, right? If you want to fix it in Rhino. But now let's do this. Let me close this. Let me create a new project here. Let me go here and export as GBXML. All right. It might take a little bit longer because we use, in this one, we use OpenStudio SDK under the hood to do that. So now if I go and here, oh, sorry, new project, here I should be able to do create from Vim and browse and open and geometry and assign data, create project. Oh, this is the old one, right? Let's do a report with this one. So it looks like for this one, we were successful and the GBXML thing went through. But let me do the second floor and then you'll see that the errors start to pop up. So as you see, like you have the option to do GBXML if you want. It's just if it's not the one that I recommend because there are things that can happen. Okay, I put the IES up. I put this thing up. Let's go back. Level 1 done. How am I doing on time? 37. Okay, not too bad. I have more than hour 20 minutes. The second floor, it will be faster, and I assume now you know the overall workflow. So I go to step 3. This time, I select level 2, right? I go next. This is the second floor. I select everything, and I click on preview. So the second floor, we didn't get any warnings, but we have a missing space here. Right, there's one that's missing in the floor. Again, like I can click here and open floor plan. So it should open floor plan for me, which is here. So you can see this is the one that's missing. Again, this has been a thing, like I think Victor at some point asked, other people have asked, is there a way just to remove this? Just have something to figure it out for you and cap basically the gap. It's tricky. It's very tricky, even in this one, because we don't have enough information. If it's extruded, yes, you can do that. But for these models, it's very tricky. So the easier way is just to go put a room here, right, and then go here, and this is called a shaft, I think. That's what it is. And now you think you're good, but you're not. So we'll see what happens. So if I go back here to Revit, select everything. And again, if I do preview, if I reload preview, let me do this once if this is wrong. You'll be like, I added a room, but it's not there because again, you made a change in Revit, right? So you have to reload the whole geometry. Oh, the shaft is here. Let me select that and preview. So you see there is an error here. It gives me a warning, and by now I assume some of you already know why. Because of this is because of how Revit works when you place a room. So select. This is what I usually, so the reason is because the limit offset is smaller than what it should be. So it ends in the middle of the way. The way to see it, again, is let's try a new section, go to view, section, put a section right here. Right click, go to view, and you can't see it because of the, what is this thing called, graphic, visibility graphic stuff. So I can go here, room, select the room. The other thing is we should probably do something similar to what we do for floor plans to quickly make this possible so you don't have to go and do it manually. But this is what's happening. This ends up here, so I can easily, in this time I just drag it up. And you see Revit stops it here because this is a room bounding element. So this is done. Let's go back here. Oh, don't touch that. And do reload. And happy days, like clean model. Any questions on the second floor? No. Okay, so a few things for you to notice. Maybe I should have just exported the GBXML so you see like what happens with GBXML. But the thing is, everything that we had here are kind of going clean, right? There is a missing aperture here that we have to figure out. Here, you don't have the wall really. The wall is missing, right? But the thing, but all the apertures are out correctly. So we have most of the things correctly. Before I go and I fix this one because of that separation line thing, I'm going to talk a little bit about the aperture control that I just mentioned. So you see, this is the skylight one, right? The one that we have here, right? And I discussed about, we give you control based on the material that you have in the panel. I think like I clicked on something and I don't know where it is. Okay, I don't know what happened, but like I wanted to show you the type so we can talk about like different materials. But what really happening is because now everything is included, this thing all the way until the end of the geometry is now translated to an aperture. This is why it comes like all the way here. So if you don't want this, if you want to have a more accurate representation, let me just take a screenshot of this. Or actually, I can show off this too. Like you can do a screenshot here. You can click here, and it does a screenshot for you. So I say, all materials. So now if I go back to step 2, and here say only give me glass. Don't have the aluminum. Just give me glass. And I know there is a big fight on how you pronounce aluminum, like, and I think I pronounced it wrong anyways. So, whatever it is, I'm not part of that fight. So now if I go, you should see the distance here is larger because we're only taking the glass. What happened to my screenshot? So this is before after. Does it make sense? Again, in like for example, if you have residential building, we saw models mainly on the residential end that you have like really detailed like things going on with the window and curtain wall and all those. and really removing them just make your life easy, makes your model cleaner, and makes everything faster. Okay, should I go ahead and do this, or should I go with the linked model? So let me go ahead and do at least like fix this one here on this part, the suppression line, and then we'll see how much time we have. And if you have any questions, I think that will be a good time to ask your questions. So let me go back here, and you know, like these are the moments that you think, okay, done. Like I found the suppression line, let me delete it, and then everything should be fine. So I'll go here, I select the suppression line, I delete it, and doesn't look like anything is wrong, right? So let me select the and delete this. And now let's go back to our 3D model and see what happens. So I select everything and I reload the model. And from the time that it's taken, you should know like something is going on. Here you go. Hello, darkness, my old friend. So what's happening here is, again, by now you should see when you see this cryptic thing of like, oh, there is a room, but it doesn't really see a room. It basically means either you have a leak, something going out, or you have a ceiling, something in the model that stops it from going all the way to slab. So how to fix this? By now you should have a very good sense of how to do this. So I go in 3D view in this case, then I select this roof, then I edit profile. And if I go to level 2, they select the wrong one. I was expecting it. So actually, let me go. I can fix it in 2D. I don't need this thing. Let me go here. If I just go in top view here, you will see this is ending here. It doesn't come all the way to the end, and that's where the leak is happening. So just need to just move this a little bit out, and I have to do the same thing here, I imagine. And now if I go back to my preview, let's see if I got it. Yes, the apertures are here. This is also fixed. And I don't know, Victor, did you try to put the suppression line out? I didn't, because I didn't want to take the risk, but that should probably work. And this is also, the wall is now back here. It's fixed. So the reason they put the suppression line there was because they didn't want to fix this leak. And I don't know why. Or maybe like they didn't even care because like they wanted the roof to end there for better rendering. But that's the deal about the detailed model. If you want to get a clean detailed model, you have to take care of these items. Any questions for me? No? Okay. A very quiet audience. Okay. I mean, like, does it mean like everything is going well? That's so good to be through. But now I go back and I select both levels to show you when you thought everything is fine, it's not really fine. Because if I now select everything and do reload preview, we will see there is one more thing that we need to fix. And this is, again, something that you can fix in Rhino or other tools also quickly. And that's this gap here. Right? The reason this gap is happening, again, remember we are in detailed mode. In detailed mode, the source of truth is your room or space geometry. And room and space geometry stops here because there's a slab there that is room bounded, right? If I go to this section, this is not the section I want. This is the section that I want. This element is room bounding, and it should be. And that's why the room stops here. So you get a gap here. Again, this is something like depending on how you do model and what kind of model you want to do, there can be different ways of doing it. If you do only daylight thing, this is actually the better model than the bringing it up, because it's just like the floor to floor height is more accurate, or floor to ceiling height. If you do energy, you don't want this gap here. You want it to go all the way up. The way to do that, we tested a few different methods. Now if we ended up here finally, that you can overwrite the height, overwrite the whole height for the room. So it gets you there. So in this case, I'm going to select everything, all the rooms in level 1, except for living, because the living room is this one here, but this has a different story. And here I'm going to change the height. Why this one is 20? Oh, everything is 2700. I'm going to change all of them to be 3000. The way I do it, and the reason 3000 is because I already measured this in Revit section. You can do that. You click on override reset height, and then make this thing 3000. And now if I select everything and do, I could have applied it, or I do preview, which basically does apply under the hood. Here we go. So the gap is removed between those. Any questions? There is no warnings. Everything is fine. There is even a validate command here in Revit. I haven't used it for some time, so hopefully it works as expected. Yes, it works. It does and says the model is validated. A valid model means there is no obvious error that this geometry will fail when you run it for a simulation, either for daylighting or energy simulation. It does not mean the program that is set to your model is valid. We don't know that, right? We don't have the knowledge to know that. But we know to check all the apertures are inside the, the parent face. There are not two apertures on top of each other. You don't have like the area of the apertures in a face is not more than the total parent wall. And you think that those things are not going to happen to you. They will happen to you. Like the Revit models are like, there are so many things that can go wrong. And this is a good thing to check all the time to make sure like you have the minimum correct things happening there, at least in your geometry. Any questions? So we're at 11:52. We have like 8 more minutes to go. So let me go to export everything next. Here, next. Now I'm going to select everything and export them to the 3 file that I did. Let me do HV.json, overwrite the one that we had. Let me export to gem and save it. And let me export the green building GBXML and save it. So I saved all the 3 of them. The GBXML, as I said, takes a little bit longer than the other 2. I can close this and make sure if you want to keep the changes that you have made to your model, save your Revit model. Otherwise, the next time that you come, the changes that you have made to Pollination will be gone. When you save it, they will be there. If there is no questions, let me go here and open this. So I'm going to create a new project. Oh, why this thing is not gone? New project. Quick, create a new project. Shouldn't this thing be gone? Maybe I'll go, I check the time and open the HV.json first in Rhino. I imagine there will be some small errors. Okay, this says it's all valid. It changes the unit. So one of the things that we have in Revit that we can do better in the future is we don't do the unit translation. So we just use Revit's base unit, which is feet. So every model that you export comes as feet when it goes to HV.json and comes to Rhino. This is something that you can change the units quickly in Rhino, but we can probably at some point, or we should, do a better job and like take your model units in Revit and export it like that. For GEM, everything is always methods. So you see this model came here, everything is clean, all the room names came. If I had programs, if I could have assigned them, then you would have seen them. I'm not going to clean up anything in Revit, that's the afternoon class, but I'm going here to open the project or create a new project. Open, import the gem file. Let's do the gem file first. And again, you see things comes in. We have the new thing, the shade is there, okay. And we didn't get any errors. We can also run a model report and see if there is anything. Intersecting spaces. Where did the report go? This is the report is here. So I don't see any major errors. Am I right? The IES users on the call.
Yeah, I can see it either.
Yeah, okay, you can. Okay, that's good. Then let's do GBXML and see. New project, create from bin file, browse, GBXML, open. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. No. So it's importing the GBXML. And you see there are errors already. Is it errors? Usually comes up yes. So you see the same exact analytical model. We just push it through different translations, and when we go, and some of them are fixed, or actually in this case, most, am I right? When it goes like this, it means like it fixed it on import. I think that's my understanding. But yeah, we have like things that just like we can't fix, no one can fix, and that's why we have the gem workflow. That's, I'm trying to make the point of like why GBXML can get tricky very quickly when you use it for interpretability, but for this case, it almost works. You can say that.
What's the discussion been like with IES on that? I mean, so let's think like longer term. So geometry, you've had to work on it, like directly writing out the gem, but you know, as users want to, you know, more integrate into upstream workflows like constructions programs, etc. Do you plan on running directly to that, or do you plan on improving the GBXML import process with IES?
So what we have heard from most of the users is the construction set and all those are mostly automated inside IES. People use, what's this, pilot? No. What is this thing that walks you through different steps in the process? And there will be automatically basically assigned. So it hasn't been a main concern. The main concern has been geometry most of the time. I don't know, like we haven't really discussed that because again, it hasn't come up enough times. Most people are like, okay, you're giving us geometry, great. For the, can you help me? What is the name of the thing? What
A wizard?
The navigator? Yeah, they call it.
Navigator. Yeah, people use Navigator, and Navigator apparently automates most of that process of assigning the templates and all those. So do you have like a specific case that you think is like something that will make your life easy?
Well, I mean, how I've seen this work in our firm, I mean, we always are, you know, customizing our templates, constructions, and the program. We'd start with a default, and if you're building a baseline model, you can use default, you know, constructions assigned per climate zone, whatever. But anything proposed, we're always going to be tuning it to our building. So I just think, you know, longer term, at least personally, I'd much rather have tie-ins upstream that I can help like this at scale. I don't have to keep customizing it every time or bringing in just geometry. But I do appreciate the fact that you guys wrote a, you know, direct gem to be able to get the geometry to work. I'm just thinking longer term.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm already seeing that. Like I'm already like kind of wanting to build more upstream approaches.
That makes sense. And I think one thing is like there are other file formats besides GEM that IES handles. We haven't discussed it again. And yeah, that's something I can bring up next time that we talk to see like what are the options that we have. GBXML has been tricky because it has a very long history and we don't have necessarily a lot of control on the translation process and how people, and more importantly, like how they import it. So it's not only about how you export it, it's about like how every software is importing GBXML, and they're doing it slightly differently that cause a lot of headache to handle that. So I prefer, if you want to do that, to find a way to directly write to IES file format, whatever that thing is. So we can guarantee if something doesn't work, you can come to us and say, okay, we'll fix it. We know where it is, we have control. Instead of like GBXML, which is a little bit of a black box to us, like how every platform basically imports it on their end. Chris, do you want to add something?
I mean, yeah, maybe I'll just say that we do try and write the constructions into the GBXML right now, but I mean, GBXML is already pretty limited in its way to describe a lot of this stuff too. There's no, like, for example, no multi-layered window constructions or anything like that you're able to create within Honeybee and Energy Plus Open Studio World. So I mean, I think if we were to try and do this right, it would be about using some of those IES native formats to try and write this metadata rather than trying to do it all through GBXML, because they're just things that are limited about the file format itself, and that that are all different in every platform basically. In the way that it
I think they
it.
do a decent job from like construction. I don't know the HVAC, but I have tried before construction, so you can check it quickly by adding them here. It's for the GBXML from Rhino. But yeah, I think like I agree. Like the safer way for us to be able to say the interoperability is not going to break is like to have a file format that we can control, and we make sure like we can do something that will work right away. Any other questions before linked models? So let me ask, like, from the people here, like, how many of you have linked models? Like, you have to deal with linked model? Is it like a very common thing? Because I initially was hoping that's not the case, but it looks like more and more, especially when it comes on the engineering side, linked models are the way to go.
It depends on the project. Sometimes we'll have one model. Sometimes we'll have a shell model separate from a main model. And then consultant models linked in.
Right. I'll show you how that works, and I'll show you the process. And yeah, you tell me, like, because this is again, like, this is on the newer end of things that we have developed. We can get a lot in, but there are like a small things that there will be challenges with. So if there are no questions, and I think I can give you a little bit of break if you want to grab a tea, coffee, something, because it's like, let's give a break for maybe 3 minutes and just go quickly, or maybe 3 minutes is like so harsh. So 8 minutes, what about that? So let's be back here at 12:10. And at that point, if you're here, like, close this, and there are linked models that I copied to Google Drive. If you want to go and download them and open them if you're following along. Otherwise, if you're just watching, you're all good. I'll just open the linked model when we come back and we work on the linked model. Okay. So let's get it started. If everyone is there, I can't see you. So I know, do me a thumbs up or whatever, like in a way, or I know you're around, so I can get it started. Thank you. We have 2. So if you want to follow along, thanks again, Garrett. Thank you. I'll see that too. You have access to Google Drive, right? I imagine you all received an email with the link to Google Drive. If you don't, maybe Chris or Mingo, if you can copy it here, or maybe I can try to look it up. There is a folder there called linked models. There should be 2 files inside that. It's called, so it's a sample model, and then there is a basic sample project, clean spaces. The spaces is basically the model that you want to open, and it is linked to the other sample Revit model. So thank you for copying the link to Google. So you should see it here. This is linked model. Just download the whole folder and you should have the files. And then if you want to copy spaces, honestly, like there's not much to follow here. I'm going to go through the process to show you the logic of how it really works. There is a checklist I want to go through for a linked model. Wherever my presentation is. So, okay, I assume everyone is there. So I'm going to get us started. Actually, I had a few follow-up slides here to say. So the model cleanup that we did, the checklist. So I think like you saw from the process, separation lines, always check for them. Those are usually the source of issue, the source of all these misalignments. If you can get your models clean separation lines, is key to have like a clean optical model. Then room bounding elements is the second one that can be a problem especially if you go with detailed. There is another thing that we have seen in a lot of either residential buildings or the model that closer to the end of the project when there's too many details. So you have the main wall, and there is a small wall that does like the for finishing, and that's room bounding. And that stops the line there instead of getting all the way to your main wall. And that's sometimes you miss apertures because of that. Again, the quick fix is just to go in and make them not being room bounding. Something that I didn't show in this model, we didn't have the issue, is the level computation height. We have cases that the way it's modeled, curtain wall is sitting on top of something else, right? For example, you have 2 feet, 3 feet, like of whatever is in your model, and then you have the curtain wall on top of that. And if the computation height is at 0, the room doesn't see that aperture. So the fix for that, if I forgot to mention, is you can change that in the level step. So here inside the level, there is an input for computation height. This is the same as selecting the level in Revit and change the computational height. That's the place that Revit basically tries to create a section, a horizontal section to find the room boundary. So that's another thing that we see in models that you want to be careful about. And then unbounded rooms, we didn't have it in this model, but there's a lot of cases that people you have a room, you just delete it, you forget about it, it's there still in your model. If they show up, you get a warning. To see the warning, right click and delete the room. Then you should be fine. This is like 90% of the things that goes wrong in the models when you want to clean them up. And of course, you usually have all of them in your models for larger models. So now with that, the next thing is linked models. And we just discussed, it says part of the start didn't load. Try reloading. Show anyways. Okay, so for linked model, the thing is you want to make sure your linked model is set to room bounding. Okay, I think this is just giving me a hard time. Sorry, let me use it like this. I don't know why it doesn't show this image. So one thing is you want to make sure that when you select your linked model, it is room bounding. So the elements are room bounding. I just mentioned during the break too that this is a good thing and a bad thing because you have to use the other link model as room bounding. What can happen is you have elements there and you can't easily go and say these are not room bounding anymore. So that's the challenge that we're still trying to figure out the best way around it. Then the next thing is you have to make sure the phases are mapped correctly in your link model. These are in a standard workflow. If you have someone in the office, usually these are all set. But sometimes we have seen models, or maybe it's because people send us the model and I have to download them. Sometimes I have to go and redo all this to make sure the models are correct. One that we have seen several times, it's not that easy, is when you download Revit models and you open them, then there will be detached from central, right? What you need to do, you need to go back to this process of opening every file as detached from central, save as a new central model, then go and open the host file as a new local copy and start working from inside that. And then when you go there, you have to check all the links and make sure all the file path is correct, so the link models are loaded correctly. And if it's not, fix them. And that's when you can start working. And when you work, you have once in a while, you have to sync with central model for your changes. I imagine these are things that people who work with Revit understand pretty well. For me, it took some time to get my head around the complexity. Or of course, you can ask your BIM manager and they just do it for you. If the link models are set correctly, then you should be able to use our link model features for all this stuff. So how does that work? The main difference here is instead of just click on export model and go all the way, when I click on export model and I go here, I see that, oh, the apertures that I really want to have, they're not in this model, they're in the architectural model, and I don't have access to them. So if I go ahead and try to export them and I select this like this and go to next and select both levels. And in this case, there are spaces, not rooms. So I have to click on spaces, not rooms. You see the apertures are 0. There are no apertures in the model. So if I select them and preview them just to make sure the apertures are not there, because the apertures are in the link model. In this case, the architectural model. In some cases, you have enclosure, you know, all of those. So how to resolve that? Before we have support for linked models, the way you had to do that, you had to go and basically bind them in. And for larger models, that would have taken forever. Sometimes Revit, I got the error of like, oh, there's not enough memory, even though I had a lot of memory, but still.
Sorry, Mustafa, can I ask a quick question? So with regards to that, if the model lives on BIM 360 or ACC, you still have to do that where you need to create local copies of everything?
No, like this one, I was mentioning it just to make sure your linked models are set up correctly. If you have on BIM 360, those are all already set up.
Got it, thank you.
Your BIM manager, you already have it. So the way to know that's set up correctly is one, when you go here, there are Revit links here. These are set correctly. They're like, you know, you see them. If you don't see a red cross here. The other thing is when you click on link manager, you see all the link models that you want loaded here. And now I'm talking about Pollination link manager, not the Revit link manager. If you don't see them, then you have to go through the process that I just mentioned. So in this case, I'm going to say I want the aperture and context shapes to be accessed from this link model. I press OK. Now, if I go back to export model, and I go to next step, this time I also have access to the linked model here. So I can go to that model, and now I can select all the apertures that comes from that linked model, right? So I selected all of them. I'm not going to go through and like go through this and clean up this, but you already know about that. I can select this one for curtain wall panel. I'm going to select the doors too. So now if I go next, I don't know why every time I move my mouse that goes away. Oh, there is something here. Maybe I should show. So if you like, there is an expand all, collapse all thing for making it quick. This is something that we added to UI. So you don't have to go and open them one by one. If you want to quickly see them and try to edit them. The UI thing doesn't matter much. So now that I have, remember, I have selected all of those from linked model, I can go to next step. And now if I do this, sorry, my bad. If I go here, there should be spaces. And now you see spaces, they have apertures and everything has been loaded, right? So if I select this and show the preview, this basically should load everything with the apertures and everything else that we have. Make sense so far? And we didn't have to bind the link model. So it's still linked, but we just parse everything out of that. So the things that we can fix is because the rooms are here, we can basically overwrite the height that I did and fix this gap. The thing that we cannot fix is this column here in the middle, because I don't have access to this column, right? It is in the linked model. I cannot right click on it and say it's not room banding. And this is again going back to the reason of what we want to add more repairing workflow. So if we can have something and say, hey, remove any hole or space that's smaller than something. If you bring it to Rhino, we added a new command. I mean, or the command was there. We improved that you can do untrim, and by untrim you can quickly click on them and they will be gone. But again, we're trying to make sure like we can do as much as we can in Revit. I know there is a lot of kind of fear of like, oh my God, I have to learn a new software, which is Rhino. I think over time we will get everyone comfortable with that. But for now, it makes sense to do as much as we can inside Revit. The next step is you can do the same thing now with context. So if I go to next level, so if I select everything and go next. So now in context, I can get the context from host, or I can get the context from my link model. So that landscape model that you mentioned is something that now you can actually work with and bring it here and go take the geometry from there as context. One thing that's not as nice as it used to be is, come on. So right now, when you click on plus, it doesn't give you the option to add selected, because you cannot do that, because we cannot select certain items from the linked model from the Revit UI anymore, right? It's not similar to what I showed for add selected. As a result, you have to go and select them one by one. I know that's a painful process. I do not like it, but that's what we have right now. And the other thing is the UI is kind of broken, so you don't really see the things that you select. They don't remain selected, but it works. It still gives you to select them. So I selected 3 of them. I can preview them. And this is something that we are trying to see if there is a better option to, you know, like give you a better visual feedback inside Revit too. Fortunately, you can still preview everything in Pollination Viewer. So that means like, you know, what are you doing? You know what's coming, you know what's not coming. But it's still like for linked model, that's one of the limitations that we have. So yeah, the rest of the process is basically the same. The change is now for 3 steps. One is the step for doing the context. Second is the step for doing the aperture. You have a drop down. And third is the step for pulling user data. So for user data, you can also go and take it from linked model. You see it's not here in dropdown. And do you know why? The reason it's not in the dropdown because when I was in my link manager, I didn't select it. I didn't select the link to the user data from this linked model to be available. Again, this gives you flexibility to say, okay, from this model, I only want the aperture. From this model, I only want the context. So you don't have to load everything when you have larger models. So now you see it shows up. So I have both posts and I have the other one if I want to get the user data. Any questions, comments? No? I saw someone had a moment to say something. Don't be shy. If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, I'll go back to the presentation.
Well, I was just trying this on the fly. I'm getting an error that says I can't find any rooms or spaces that pass the specified filters.
Because your link, did you do the thing that I said to open it as central and then save them?
Oh, I didn't process it like that yet. No.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why. Okay.
Yeah, because
I have to have a central.
Yeah.
I have to do the processing.
You have to set it up correctly. I mean, if you have your files are already set correctly when you get them. But then if you have new files like this one that you download, you have to make sure all the linked model things set correctly. So let me go.
Maybe put that in the UI then? No, I just wouldn't have known that unless you would have just told me. I would have had to post on it. So is there a way to like flag it?
That has been the best thing that we have right now is just like we don't show it up. Does it show up in the link manager?
I mean, no, I could use the link manager. I see it there. I
Okay.
can check apertures, but when I go to export rooms, even I check the phases for map. It just, I can even see rooms under,
You shouldn't see any rooms, right? You should only see
or
space.
spaces. Yeah, I can see spaces under step 6, but not under step 5.
Interesting. Yeah, I
4.
mean, let's debug that together, like maybe after this.
Yeah, okay.
I can share a screen. And, yeah, that should work. But I do not know. And yeah, linked model is like the newer thing. So there will be a few iterations. I mean, yeah, I said it, I don't know at the start, like I just watched the one that we did last year and the one 2 years ago. I was like, oh my God, this is really good now. We are at a place, I hope like next year, like linked model will be like fully fledged available. So we don't have to go through those stuff. But any like minor issues, hopefully we don't see any of them. So the last thing, wrapping up and then answering all your question is what's next. So far I just showed you what we have done and what you have to use right now. All the things that I showed you, like you can just use it right away. But the place that we are going now is we hope people in the near future to also use it like this. So I showed all the thing of Revit going all the way to other software, going Revit to Rhino, something that this afternoon you will see some of those. But we are also developing this kind of like simple but elegant at the same time, elegant simplicity of Revit model. The analytical that we have right now should directly work with an app from inside Revit. And the way that will work is there is a video here, but I'll show you live. And if it worked live, then great. If it didn't work live, then I'm going to come back and show you the video. So the way that works is this is a cleaned one. So I go back to Pollination. I'm going to use Pollination Apps here. We should do better than keeping people logged in. Actually. So I'm going to show you the incident radiation one as an app. So if you don't know what apps are, they are basically some Python code. They're really web applications. Maybe I should show you here before jumping there. We have apps are a beta feature, as I mentioned, but we're still working on them. There are things that we are figuring out. But what they are basically web applications. So the same app that I opened, radiation, okay. Incident radiation that I opened there in Revit, I can open it on the web. And when I open it on the web, it basically says, give me an HPJSON file, right? So I can upload the HPJSON file. There are steps for adding an EPW file. And when I open the same app inside Revit, that upload HPJSON file changes to get model, which means it knows this inside Revit. And if I click on get model, it brings up the same workflow that we went through during this workshop to basically get your model from your from inside Revit. Of course, ideally we have to cache this, and you don't have to go through the process every time. Or I should save the changes that I make to my files. But the thing is, you know, by now you know this process. This model is cleaned up, so it shouldn't be hard to do the steps. The only thing that is going to be different here is I'm going to select them and make sure they have sensor grid. So I add sensor grid to rooms because for the radiation study, you need sensor grid. And now instead of export here, the model will be linked. So if I click on link, now the model that I had in Revit is inside this application. I can browse the file for a weather file. It says in the weather file, like this weather file. Of course, ideally in the future, you want this to be linked to your Revit location. So you don't have to select the weather file. You just say, this is your Revit location. It gives you a few options for EPW files that are available. And then this means at this point, I can basically run the study. Again, this is like a specific to this app. So there are ground reflectance that I can change. I can change the north direction. Again, this is something that you want ideally to be linked to your Revit model, and we will do. Then everything you can add a help. Again, this is a specific to this app. A different app can have different UI, how you want to use it. But the app is like a web interface, so it should be pretty easy for most of people to follow. And then you can run here and say compute radiation, and this should start running. And once the results are done, there is an option to display the results in the app, right? So I can see the result of this radiation study in the app. But wouldn't it be cool if I could just push the same result and push it back into Revit? So yes, it will be. So I can remove this and I can come here. I have to change this to, or let me go to 3D views. That's easier to see everything. So if I go to 3D view and I'm going to select this and I'm going to hide them by category. So if I click on this and I say send results, the same result that I have are now baked into Revit. I couldn't see your faces, but hopefully this was good enough of an integration. Okay, that's a nice. Thank you for the emoji. So this thing goes to Revit, and the good thing here is this is now part of your Revit document. So basically you have legend and everything, right? And what we have done, we brought all the other goodies that comes with pollination and ladybug tools here. So if I select this, I can edit the style, and you have all the known color sets. And you can also control this from apps, so you can change that. Unfortunately, Revit, or I don't know how, or like I couldn't figure out with Conrad, I asked, I can't believe that, but it looks like we cannot, when you edit this here, right? You can't set the minimum maximum. You cannot change the minimum maximum for the legend, or you cannot set it initially. So that has been a thing that I think like will be, so you can set the steps, you can set the mean width, but you cannot apparently set this too. Is that right? Anyone knows like if there is a way to overwrite this? Okay, I assume not. But yeah, that's one of the limitations that we have. Again, like you see, like we are trying to push this as much as we can. So now the result is inside, and I can even do like multiple results and push them to Revit. So if I want, that was like for the whole year. So if you want to do a point in time study and now compute that, right? And that one is done faster. You see the result change here. So if I send the result, this should be a new one. So you see I have two legends here for two different ones that I baked. And then if I go here, I should be able to see, you know, like both of them are visible. So there's 1 and 2. So one is like the annual one. The other one is the one that we ran for those points in time. So you can edit those, you can manage those, you can just skip some of them. So where we're really trying to head with this, to go with this, one is you don't have to leave Revit to do a lot of this study. The other thing is you can package a lot of the knowledge that you have or a lot of workflows that you use as apps and make them available to all your users, right? And the third one is we're trying to bring everything back into inside Revit and make it part of the Revit document. So this was a grid based result where we want you to be able to bring like heating load and cooling load and all those and be able to color rooms by that and be able to create reports by that. So that's where the whole thing with the apps are going. Do you have any questions for me? Yeah. Can you hear me? If not, I know. Yeah, thank you. So because there's no questions here, so things went well. So I'm not going to show you this video. In this video, I basically run a different app for annual load. And then I basically show how you can do the same thing from inside Rhino and SketchUp too, because they're using the apps are this going to work in different platforms, including those platforms. No, go next. So what are the next steps? What do we have on our list right now for the Revit plugin? I mentioned some of them, but here's the clean version of that. So one thing we want to continue improving the curtain wall parsing routines. I think we have a very good routine right now. We manage a lot of cases, but we still have cases that are missing apertures when things are exported. One case is when people have double height spaces. Sometimes we're missing some of the apertures. There was a case that people did something strange with curtain wall, which I don't even remember. But the key here is every model that you share with us and with Vix, this thing gets better for everyone. Basically, there is no way to understand all the ways that people model an aperture in Revit without like seeing the models. That's our way. So if you tested a model and there are missing apertures and you check the list that I told you earlier about, you know, all the separation lines and everything, and you still don't see the aperture, contact us. We'll be more than happy to help. It's usually like you have modeled it in a different way that we didn't consider. And from experience, I can tell you there are like way too many ways to model to do the same thing in Revit. Then the other thing that we are trying to do, and this came from HVAC engineers, we have good amount of HVAC engineers now using the Revit plugin. And one thing has been like architects are moving the rooms around, and we have to redraw the spaces based on the rooms. If there is a way to automate that, so we want to automate that for you. So basically, there is a live link while architects are changing those models. You can basically say regenerate rooms or regenerate the spaces, and it goes in the ones that you already have. It will keep it, and the ones that have changed, it will change them. So that's another thing that we have on the list. We have adding additional methods for repairing the model in Revit. The one that is currently on the list, on top of the list, is to be able to use areas in Revit to basically group some of the rooms. So a few things that you can do, for example, you can draw the area for the whole floor, and we only export the envelope. So we remove everything inside within the threshold. Or you can draw like your HVAC zones if you want like merge these rooms together and you think that's a lot of details. You can basically draw a few areas in your level and say, I want this thing to be exported at like 1, 2, 3 areas. And then we basically take those instead of like exporting every single interior wall that you have. Last but not least, I think bringing the result back into Revit is something that we understand is like people ask for it a lot. I just showed you the grid-based stuff, but I think one of the better workflows that if you can put together will be really great is even if you don't use pollination, if you go to IES, if you go to openness, or if you go outside the pollination, and if you use the Rhino plugin, then we still have everything integrated. But you run the simulation, you have some simulation results, you want to quickly bring them back into Revit for all the visualization. That's something that we have on the list to support. So these are the 4 items that if you don't see your topic here, we can talk about it now, or we can always go to Discord and get it from there. You can, a reminder, you can start today. None of the things that I showed you is something that is not out there. You can just download the Revit plugin. The latest version is 106 to 106, and it has all the features that I have. One thing to keep in mind for this workshop, I just made it hard on purpose to just show you all the different things that needs to happen and can happen. You can just watch this video. There's a video on YouTube that I basically clean up this whole thing, and it takes much shorter than the time that I spent during this workshop to clean up a smaller model, because I use extruded mode and go through the process, and I'll take the model to all these different platforms in that video. So that's a good short video to watch if you want to know more. Then user manual is your friend. We have similar videos on user manual for Revit. We have a section for best practices that can help you. Most likely the first or second model that you test is not going to work the way that you want. There are additional videos on our YouTube channel for Revit plugin that you can watch. This recording will be available of the workshop with some delay. It's up to the Core Studio team to upload it. So You can also watch this again. And then finally, at some point, you have a question. And the best place to ask a question is to go to Discourse. You can create a new topic by clicking here, and then you set the tag here and type what you want. As I said, we are on Discourse. And honestly, like I check Discourse first and my email second. If you want to send a private message on Discourse, you can also do that. There is an option for private message. Usually the best approach is make a public question, search. Okay, the first search is first search, because usually people ask about the same thing or similar thing before. Then create a new public topic and say, this is the problem. So if we can help or someone else knows, they help you first. If we need your model, then we go through the private messages. And I have probably more private messages when it comes to Revit than the public ones with all the models that we are checking. And it has been a great experience for myself. Just, you know, like as when I was in practice, and I think like the same, you know, all of us, we had our own workflows to get these things working. And this is great to see, like now we can have a workflow that is generic enough that we can really save people time on something that I have some personal thing about this to fix it, to just save time for people to do what we went to school for. I don't think anyone went to school to, you know, like redraw models in energy simulation softwares. And then, yeah, the other change that we have here, my last slide, I'm using animation. We have transparent pricing. You don't have to talk to us. There's no special deal. If you're a small office, if you want to get it started, you need additional time for testing. We support that. We have helped a few people on this call that we gave them, you know, additional time to test. If you need that, just get in touch. We can do that. If you are a nonprofit or if you're using it for educational purpose, reach out. We will give you a good discount to make sure like you can use it and you can save time. Yeah, you like our team is a small. You have access to all of us. There is no like magic on pricing, like similar to there is no magic on the Revit side pricing. Like we just here. We have the same price for everyone, and part of the slide doesn't show up. What was this slide here? Oh, and in case you are in New York, some of you are in New York, and if you saw the app and you thought, oh, okay, that's a cool thing, I want to learn how to build one, or I want to learn how to use the ones that are there. You are teaching a workshop, in-person workshop on November 3rd, 2 days from now in New York on apps. We did one in Chicago, was it like 2 weeks ago? And it was very successful. People even pushed their sample apps to Pollination that you can go and see right now. So if you want, I think we still have few seats left that you can sign up for. So this is the app that we built, and you see like these are the other people push the app here, but this was a simple app that we built during the workshop in half a day and pushed it. This workshop will be full day, so we can hopefully do more than that. In Chicago, it was full day too, but most of the audience didn't know Python, so I had to go very slow. But other than that, it was still like we could build the app, show the possibilities and how things work. And you see the app takes a little bit of time to load because they're beta right now. We are basically using instances that go down quickly if no one is using them. But if someone is using them, then it will be quick. So this is a quick one that shows like you basically build a quick weather report with like 25 lines of code, and you can select different weather files and load them, and this should just now be the new one. So, oh wow, this is pretty. I was expecting this to be hotter in California. Okay. So that's a weather visualization tool. It tells you like the things that you think about places now. Right? We have 15 minutes left. I think that we kind of like had a spread of questions during the course. But do you have any other questions for me or anyone else on the team about anything? And maybe you want to turn on your videos now. So I see if you want, if you like. And I'm going to stop sharing. How do I stop sharing? Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you for surviving the workshop. I hope you learned something new during the workshop. And we are big on feedback. I'll send a questionnaire after the workshop to get some feedback. And but if you want to share any feedback, and honestly, like I said it before, I say it again, it's just like the software is going to get better only with your help. We have done as much as we could have, and this is a very hard problem to solve. The Revit one is really hard, and we had is it intensive or incentives to give up, because like it just takes a lot of work for this thing to get to a point that we can really get to the market in a way that an average market says, okay, this is great, and we know that. But at the same time, I think the problem is important enough and big enough that someone should solve it. And we were lucky to just get some grant to get this started, and like at that point, like we're in it, we have to get it to work. And as I said, I think like we have come really far during the last 2.5 years, and I'm just looking forward for this thing to get better. But for this thing to get better, we need your help. Some of you are already helping us. Thank you so much. Some of you are new here, like the first time I see the faces. Feel free to reach out all the time. We will be happy to help. And there is no, like, some people are like skeptical. There is nothing as like a stupid question. Like if you don't know something, that's a valid question. Just reach out. I'll be more than happy to help. The whole team, the whole Ladybug Tools, the site Pollination team, we are more than happy to help anyone with any question. That's part of the deal, basically. That's all that I had. Any comments, questions?
Okay, I think oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I like how you're really kind of enforcing folks to build clean models. You're like really kind of teasing out what may look like a good model, but actually isn't. So you're kind of like bringing that to the forefront. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's part of the goal. I hope people like it. I don't know if many people like it, but thank you. 11.
I think you are doing an incredible job, and I really thank you for the whole team who is just taking part on this development. My only concern is, I think in the end, you are going to follow this Ladybug tool mantra. The pollination is going to be easy to learn, but impossible to master. This is my only concern, and good luck with that.
Yeah, we're on the way. Revit is hard. And I should give like a huge shout out to Conrad. Really, like, without Conrad, this was not possible. Like, and he has the same mentality. Like, we go through this, and honestly, like every time we think we figured it out, someone sends a new model, and God, like again, the missing apertures. God, like how many ways of doing the same thing? But yeah, I think like we're committed to make this work, and I think as long as Conrad doesn't give up on us, we're not gonna give up. So like this thing is, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get like easy to start, like impossible to master. Joe, do you have comment? Is that a raised hand? Yeah. Yeah. No. What is that? Is it my mouse? Oh, my mouse looks like a hand.
Yeah, no comment.
Yeah, sorry. I still don't know how Zoom works. We use Google. Yeah. Okay. If there is nothing else, then I think like I can just hand it over to Chris. We can wrap this up. You have an hour and 10 minutes to get lunch, dinner, snack based on what time zone you are at. And then there will be another one for Rhino, which I will.
Mustafa, I have one thing. I just wanted to kind of second some of the appreciation I have for you guys and being, I guess some platforms and I guess some other software out there don't have the same kind of support system where we feel like we have a design partner where we can actually like, we have someone that we could troubleshoot with. And it's not just like emails back and forth. So, I mean, as like a professional in the industry that wants to be an early adopter and push things, it's been helpful to have more of a direct conduit to you guys and be able to troubleshoot kind of live and quickly and in forms that could even be a phone call that we actually could share screens, because you don't get that from anyone really. And I just appreciated it. So
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. And honestly, I have to say likewise, because we always, like, as I said, like you guys also staying around and knowing like this is the process to go through. And that makes us capable to do that. And I'm glad. I was not expecting. I see like the industry. I see like there are individuals that are, there is more of like this early adopter mindset, innovator mindset of like, hey, this is a problem. These guys are trying to solve it. Let's work together to solve it, more than just like come back to me when everything works. Because that everything works, even if when we get there, probably it's not going to work for you exactly. But this is helping all of us. I think it's a win-win relationship, right? I also really appreciate it.
Did you mention like if it's just a bug? Usually you say that something like it's just a bug, we'll fix it. You know, like so. I think like all these users, like I think I like what you said too. It's come a long way in 2 years, but like if you do encounter a bug, don't be discouraged, because like there's a track record here of you guys have fixed bugs.
We do fix. That's
so
what
just
we do.
report it. Like it's
the name
pretty
of the
refreshing.
company is Ladybug. There is a bug there all the time that you cannot remove. So there was a reason for selecting the name. Yeah, there will always be bugs. Like all the
Life's
tools are
buggy.
bugs.
Yeah.
We love to solve them. And again, it's just like even if we get it fixed now, like Revit 2023 comes out, there will be 2024, and we're committed to go through. That's the process. That's how to get things fixed. I hope at some point Revit comes out and say, hey, we solved the geometry part for you, so we can just fly with the apps and the whole infrastructure that we have there. Because if you get a clean geometry, believe me, like it's not my favorite thing to just go and like fix geometry. But yeah, like we have to do it. This is where Revit is, and I mean, like it or not, that's the tool that we have to be using and we will use for some time in the near future. So
I wanted to also circle back to something that was early on. You said it's not like some tools are just like for detailed modeling, some are for concept or like simple modeling, and you are kind of could be either. I know there's been some kind of behind the scenes work, and you kind of alluded to it, but I didn't see like an actual demo of using, for example, if you wanted to start with a Revit model and think of it more conceptually and not go room by room. I think Chris was working on something where we could do zones or kind of just pull out floor by floor shells or something like that. Is that at a point that you'll have a chance to demo it soon? Or
well, let's say early next year, because I mean, honestly, like it's the first item on the list on the fix to do. But like, you know, we're getting to the end of the year, and you know, like holidays after holidays, that kind of thing. But yes, that's very top on the list, because we understand like for this a small model, for example, we don't want to go and fix all those small things. We just want to draw a line and
right.
say, this is the things I'm interested in. Just give me this. I fix the rest somewhere else. Yes, that's close. And the good thing for you to know is the core of the command is very similar to the align command. It's not the same thing, but because we have the align command already, that means I think we use a lot of that in this, whatever we are going to call it. I don't know what we do.
Yeah, I don't know, group room or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
We'll figure out something. But yeah, but it'll have the same features of like snapping to whatever line you've drawn, basically, as opposed to trying to you know, keep whatever jags and zigzags exist in the rooms, usually the room geometries. So yeah, this was also really good to see, like you know, why it's important, because I don't get to see the Revit plugin enough. This workshop was educational for me too. Yeah,
This
we'll
is
get
a
it.
simple
We'll get it
model.
there.
I should get Chris once to like watch me fixing a full hospital. Like,
Yeah, I know we talk a lot about, like, I mean, just to say why, like, it's very important that we get models from you guys too. It's just
Yes,
like,
cool.
you know, some of these cases we just can't create ourselves. We try to create them, but they only really emerge through, like, you know, the iterative design process and, you know, deleting and changing things. So yeah, I mean, it's really helpful. It really is like a joint effort with you guys, and we thank you a lot for sharing our models and testing it, sharing your models and testing it with our software.
Conrad has an ongoing joke that I will be the manager at some point because of Pollination Revit plugin. Just because it's just, man, like, yeah. Anyway, but I think like we're in a good place, and that's glad to see. Like we did a full workshop, no crash, everything worked except for like one small bug that I had to report. But that's good. To me, that's a good sign for a real model. but we'll see. Anyways, I'm not going to keep you around any longer. Thanks again for coming to this workshop. I know it was short. Any follow-up questions, you know where to find us. And if you're attending the afternoon workshops, I wish you the best. And I'll be around there, but Chris and me will be teaching them.